الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وأما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليك يا فار الله وابن فارح والوتر الموتور صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My condolences to each and every one of you, to mu'mineen and mu'minat worldwide, to our leadership, Maraji Taqleed, Maqam Muazzam Rahbari. This evening that we continue the morning of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam and continue the remembrance of his divine revolution. So we had started doing some sharh of Ziyarat Ashura. And as you remember, a few nights ago when we first began, we had mentioned that we start all ziyarat with salam. We had mentioned why we do that, why we begin with salam. Number one reason is because salam initiates irtibat and connection and relationship between the person who gives the salam and the one who replies. It's not like saying hello. Be honest with you, I hate when Muslims say hello to each other. We have one brother that, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. He's always like, oh, hello, brother Nooruddin. Not hello, man. Assalamu alaikum. Even my children, if they mess up and say hi or hello to a Muslim, this isn't acceptable. Hello does not create connection between us. Salam does. Salam establishes a relationship between the person who gives the salam and the one who replies. We had also mentioned that this salam is very important also because it's not wajib to give the salam, even though you should. However, answering the salam, it's wajib. And it's better that when you answer the salam, you give back more than what was given to you. So if someone says, Assalamu alaikum, you should reply, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. And if someone says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, then you should reply, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We start ziyarat, all ziyarat with salam. Why? It creates a connection between the za'ir, the person doing the visitation, and the mazur, the one who we are doing ziyarat of. But even more important than that is that when we say salam, the jawab and the answer from the mazur becomes wajib. And this is what's so beautiful about it. The answer you get from Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam when you do Ziyarat Ashura, it's more than what you're asking for. Whatever you have in your mind when you're reading that ziyarat, you're going to receive back from Ahl Bayt alayhim salam much more than that. When you go to Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, you go with empty hands, but you don't leave with empty hands. So this was one of the things that we had mentioned concerning salam. Last night we had mentioned why we call Hazrat Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam Abu Abdullah. I mean, we see at Karbala he has 3 sons, all of them named Ali. So where's this Abu Abdullah come from? And we had mentioned that in the shrine of Imam Hussein, just outside one of these abwab, it's written at the top, هذا مقام Abdullah al-Radi. This is the place where Abdullah al-Radi, Abdullah, the breastfeeding child, was killed. In fact, Hazrat Ali Asgar's, one of his names also is Abdullah. We had mentioned this last night also, that even if Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam had not named his son Ali Asghar Abdullah, still it would be correct to call him Abu Abdullah. Because we had mentioned about kunya. Kunya is not just what the name of your son is or what the name of your daughter is, but Arabs also use it to indicate on some sifat, some attribute that someone has within themselves, and they exemplify that attribute. And we had mentioned that last night. If someone's very generous, they're known for their generosity, Arabs would call him Abu Jawad, the father of generosity, or the owner of generosity. Abu Abdullah, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, even if he did not have a son named Abu Abdullah, still it would be correct to call him Abdullah. Why? Because he exemplifies ubudiyat, bandigi, bardigi. He is the highest example of servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just based on this alone, it's correct to call him Abu Abdullah, even if his son was not named Abdullah. Now then, this evening we read this portion of the ziyarat where we mentioned Assalamu alayka yabna Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka yabna Amirul Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka yabna Fatima Zahra, Fatima Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. We mentioned this in the ziyarat. Now let me ask you a question. If this is ziyarat Ashura, and this is ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, what's the need to mention these family members? What is the emphasis on this, that we repeat his, not only who he is, but who's his grandfather, who's his father, who's his mother? Why such emphasis on his background? One thing that is very clear, and we should understand, that whenever someone mentions their genealogy, where they're coming from, their shajara nameh, their family tree, it's to indicate on purity of lineage. And even amongst us, like Sadat, those descendants of Hazrat Rasulullah, they have a family tree that traces their family back to whichever specific imam they are descended from. And this indicates and certifies their pure descent. And so one of the aspects of mentioning the names of the ancestors of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, Amirul Mu'mineen, Fatima Zahra, Prophet alayhi salam ajma'in, one of the reasons that we do that is to indicate on the purity of his lineage. So now you're not only just learning about who the man is, but you're learning about where he comes from. What is his root? And this is very important. This is why it's so important that when our time comes to get married, that we consider who we're getting married to. It's very important. You don't just marry any yaru off the street. Somebody comes in and says, let me marry your daughter. You say, okay. Most of the time you want to get married, you look for someone that has, number one, most important thing is good religion. That their deen is safe and sound. That they truly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follow his message that was revealed through Prophet Muhammad. Number one thing is religion when marriage comes. But the second thing is we should know about that person's family. And this actually makes it a little difficult for converts to get married, to be very honest with you. I remember when I wanted to get married, I was in Hausa already. And you know, you go around because the people that are around you are born Muslims and Shias, and you go, you try to get married, you try to propose to a family, and what ends up happening? You get rejected. Why? They don't know you. They don't know your daddy. They don't know who your mommy is. I mean, one time I saw a matrimony ad. You remember Crescent newspaper? Crescent newspaper used to come from Canada. I saw a matrimonial ad in the back. Shia sister looking for Shia brother for marriage. So, you know, I wrote back, I'm a Shia, studying in Hausa. I'm planning to go to Iran to complete my studies, and I'm hoping that you can respond to me, blah, 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 blah. You know how it goes. I never heard back from the person. A couple months later, we get the message in the Crescent International newspaper. I look in the back, same ad is there. But they've made some changes. Now they put down non-practicing Shia sister, Sikh's non-practicing Shia brother. You know, we have to really be careful about these issues. The number one most important thing is lineage, descent, what is one's religion, I'm sorry. Number one most important thing is deen, religion. Second thing in marriage is, where's that person coming from? And we shouldn't discriminate against people simply based on their family, because Allah says in Quran, He takes light out of darkness and darkness out of light. Mufassirin have said that this particular verse of Quran, it's indicating on that Allah makes pure Muslims from non-Muslims and also makes kuffar from Muslims. This happens quite frequently, that people from good background become disbelievers. And people who have a non-Islamic background, they become the most exemplary believers. And this is entirely possible. So this is one aspect of mentioning of lineage and of descent. Send a salawat, inshallah. Forgive me, I've been fighting the cold since I came to San Jose. Your weather isn't much different than it is in Tampa, but it seems like it got me. Fighting the cold a little bit. To give you an example for taqriba then, to make your minds closer to this example, I'll tell you a story. Once Ma'muna Abbasi went to the post office. What, you thought you only had post offices today? No, they had post office back then too. Back then though, they used to use pigeons to deliver their messages. And I'm sure you've heard about this, carrier pigeons. Historically, carrier pigeons only could carry messages in one direction. They were trained that over there is your home, and then they would transport those pigeons to some place, put the message on them, and pigeon would fly home. And so pigeon, at the origin of carrier pigeons, only flew one way. You could only send messages in one direction. One thing that Muslims did to make this system even better, they started separating where the pigeons lived and where the pigeons were fed. And so in this way, you could have a pigeon carry a message to one place and then bring it back also. And you would have the pigeon go two ways. Once Ma'muna Abbasi goes to this post office where the pigeons are kept, he goes to the pigeon keeper and asks him, you explain to me what the secret of these pigeons is. What makes them be able to carry a message so far away and then come back with that message? What makes that possible? The pigeon keeper replies, the secret is this. Not any pigeon can do this job. Not any pigeon can do this job. First, that pigeon has to be Najib Zadeh, of noble birth. Just like, you got purebred dogs, like a purebred German Shepherd, purebred Belgian Shepherd, purebred Rottweiler, purebred Pit Bull, and you can get papers on those dogs. They have purebred animals. Pigeon also, one of the first requirements for pigeon to do this job is that pigeon has to be purebred. Second thing though, pigeon keeper says is that this isn't enough, just that the pigeon is Najib Zadeh, just that the pigeon is of noble birth, a purebred type of pigeon. That first pigeon, he's not amanat dar. He cannot bear responsibility with those letters. He has to be bred with another purebred pigeon. And that offspring of those two have to be bred again with another purebred pigeon. And up until 7 generations, then in the 7th generation, then this pigeon is able to be amanat dar. He's able to carry the responsibility of delivering that message wherever you may send him. This is why we mention who is Imam Hussein's father, who is his mother, who is his grandfather. It's indicating that Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam is Najib Zadeh. He is of noble birth. And that it indicates that he is Amanat Dar, that he's able to be trusted with the message. Mentioning of his ancestors, his mother, his father, his grandparents, so on and so forth, it's to indicate on taharat nafs, on the purity of himself. And so this is one aspect why we mention the ancestors of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Please send a salawat. One thing we have to understand is that we've all heard this hadith before, but when we hear these things, we should understand what it means. Prophet said, Hussein is from me, and I am from Hussein. How is it that Prophet, who is Imam Hussein's grandfather, that he says, Hussein is from me, and I'm from Hussein? Why? Because the message of Hussein is that same message of Prophet that is delivered by Hussein, and the message of Prophet is protected and delivered and saved by Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. It's mentioned in hadith that a man has three fathers. His biological father, that father that really is your biological father. Your father-in-law also is in a hadith considered as your father. You get married. One thing we should understand, we're not Americans here, no matter what your passport may say. Marriage is not just the joining of two people. It is in fact the joining of two families. You get married, your wife's father becomes like your father. It's important that we realize that. You have to obey him, seek advice from him, guidance from him, just as you would from your own father. And it's not just a marriage between two people. It's important that we realize this. Third type of father is your teacher. Your teacher is also considered as your father. And in Hawza Ilmiya, it's considered highly disrespectful that you should even say off to your teacher, even be disrespectful to your teacher, to speak up against your teacher. In your teacher's presence, you show him the respect, the love, the admiration that you would show to your own father. In this way, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, he's our teacher. And as such, it's as if he's like our own father. Because from Hussein, we learn. We learn the value of Islam, we learn the message of Islam, and it's as though when we say Aba Abdullah, he is the father of all the real Ibadullah, all of the real servants of Allah. You know, they have a story that they tell about Abdul Karim Ha'iri. He's the founder of Hawza Ilmiya in Very great man. And I mean, to understand how great is this man, Hawza Ilmiya is less than 100 years old. Najaf, Hawza Ilmiya Najaf is way older. Much older than Hawza Ilmiya But Hawza Ilmiya through the hard work of Hazrat Abdul Karim Ha'iri, has attained that preeminent status that it occupies today as the center of Shia learning. Abdul Karim Ha'iri, whenever he stood up to make his salat, whenever he stood up facing Qibla to make his salat, first he would say, Assalamu alayk ya Abu Abdullah. Some of his students, they asked him, Hajaqa, most people, they do ziyarat after the salat. How come you say Assalamu alaykum ya Abu Abdullah before the salat? Abdul Karim Ha'iri answers, he says, everything we have is from Hussein. Even salat is from Hussein. And if it wasn't for Hussein, not only would there not be any salat, there wouldn't be any fasting, there wouldn't be any sadaqah or zakat, khums, there wouldn't be any Islam. He's showing you that this is how much we owe Hussein. They say once in his sleep, Abdul Karim Ha'iri was told, you're going to die in 3 days. You're going to die in 3 days. He didn't pay attention to the dream. He didn't tell anyone around him about it. No one in his family. He says, the next day, he had the dream again. And on the third day, right on time, he starts to shake, he gets sick, and he feels like this is it. He gathers his family around him to say his Khuda Hafizi, and he informs them, I didn't tell you about this dream, but some days ago I dreamt that I would die in 3 days, and here I am now, Darbastaram, I'm ready to pass away. Family begins to cry. Family begins to beat their heads and to wail. And seeing his family in this condition, Abdul Karim Ha'iri says, Ya Hussein, my life has always been for you. If you should see fit that I should live longer, then I would perform such a service for you. He says almost immediately he realizes that fatwa has been reversed. He starts to feel a little better. He starts to feel a little stronger. Before he even feels 100% again, he tells his family, pack everything up. We're leaving. They say, leaving to go where? He says, we have to go for hidayah. We have to go to give guidance to the people. They leave Iraq and go to a town just outside of Qom called Iraq. They stay there in Iraq for 6 months. The ulama of Qom hear that Abdul Karim Ha'iri is just a short way away from us. They invite him to Qom, and because of the barakat of Imam Hussein, he's able to establish Qom as that markaz, as that center of learning that we see today. Anyone who goes and studies in Qom, anyone who has the opportunity to even spend some time in the Awzani of Qom, they are benefiting from the sufra of Imam Hussein. The barakat of Qom is direct from the movement of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. If Tehran is the capital of Iran, then Qom is the capital of the revolution of Hussein. This is from the barakat of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Please send a salawat. There's a video on YouTube, I saw it some time ago, but it's mentioned in a hadith that once, you can look up this video and find it, it's a very well-made video, that once Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam said to his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he said to his father, my father, are you afzal or am I? Are you better or am I? Imam Ali stays silent. In other words, he's giving Hussein permission to answer his own question. So, Imam Hussein, he answers. He says, Father, your father is Abu Talib, but my father is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Your mother is Fatima bint Asad, but my mother is Fatima bint Rasul. I am born of two ma'soom, so therefore I'm afzal. This indicates on that taharat al-nafs, purity of lineage. When we mention this, Assalamu alayka ya ibna Rasulillah, Assalamu alayka ya ibna Amir al-Mu'mineen, Assalamu alayka ya Fatima Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, we are indicating that, look, not only is this man special, but his source also is special. Where he's coming from also is special. Then we say, Assalamu alayka ya Farullah wa ibn Tharih. You know, the original meaning of far is blood, but it's come to mean blood vengeance. Allah doesn't have any blood. Farullah. Allah doesn't have blood. But what's meant by Farullah is that life that Allah gives to us through the revelation of Islam. Imam Hussein is the son, the offspring, the natural outcome of the message of Rasulullah. Imam Hussein is Farullah, and Imam Mahdi is Tharih Hussein. So we can see this relationship. There's a very strong relationship between Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam and his descendant, Imam Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala Faraja. There's a strong relationship between them. Why? Because if there wasn't Hussein and Karbala, there would be no Imam Mahdi. Without Karbala, there would be no Imam Mahdi. We have a hadith from Rasulullah that says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna al-Husayn misba'ul huda was safinat al-najat. That surely Hussein is the lamp of guidance and the ark of salvation. There's no conditions in this. You don't have to be a Shia. You don't even have to be a Muslim. You look around the world. You'll see, like in India, Hindus participate in Majalis Husseini. In Lebanon, Christians cook for Majalis Husseini. In Iran, Armenians and Jews participate and give money to put into place Majalis Imam Hussein. Hussein is a blessing to all of humanity. Not just to Muslims, not just to Shias. To Christians, to Jews, to Hindus. All of these are benefiting from the revolution of Hussein. And you can go there in India and you can see Hindus will come and touch alam and go and participate in Majlis Hussein, and you'll ask them why. They'll say, you know, last year I came here, my son was sick, and I asked Hussein to help us, and my son got better. You'll go in Lebanon and Christians will tell you, you know, my wife was dying, and I cooked for Imam Hussein, and her illness was miraculously cured. Hussein is a barakat to all of humanity. His revolution is not just an Islamic revolution. It's a human revolution. That's why it's so important for us to share with the people around us the message of Hussein. All they see about Islam on the TV is this Daesh Mal'oon. You know, this Islamic state in Syria and whosoever else. May Allah destroy them. These people have been put there by the enemies of Islam to portray a negative example of Islam. Who cuts off people's heads with a steak knife? No Muslim. This is the work of kuffar. These are not Muslims who are doing this thing. Their mission, their aim is to dirty the image of Islam so that people don't even consider Islam as an alternative. And this is one of the biggest problems we have in the country right now. Many people know that Christianity is not the truth. That's why church attendance is at an all-time low. But most Americans claim to be religious or at the very least spiritual and believe in God. You know, almost 70% of Americans say they believe in God or some religion. It's just the opposite in Europe. 70% of Europeans say they're atheists. Americans, on the other hand, most of them believe in a supreme power, but they understand that Christianity is not the right path. But we have not provided for them an alternative. We haven't provided for them another path. So the only path they see before them is Christianity, or I drop out and I make up my own religion. And this is what most Americans are doing. They drop out, they don't go to church anymore. You ask them, they say, yeah, we believe in God. Of course we believe in afterlife, but we don't believe in this, what they're preaching in the church. This is our job here in this country, to provide the people we work with, the people we go to school with, the people we live next door to, an alternative. And the whole reason for these terrorists worldwide, if it's in Iraq or Syria or Pakistan or Afghanistan, wherever, it's to dirty the image of Islam so that those people who are searching for the truth won't even look in the direction of Islam, because they think that this is what Islam is. The message of Hussein has to be shared with our neighbors, because if people see this aspect of Islam, the real message of Islam that's contained in the revolution of Hussein, then they would begin to see Islam as a viable alternative. Salawat. Then in ziyarat we say al-witr al-mawtur. Witr, it means an odd number. It means something that has been singled out as unique, alone. Mawtur if you look it up in the dictionary, it means the one who has been wronged by the murder of a relative, but to whom blood revenge is still denied. Imam Hussein, when we call him Al-Witr, it means he has been singled out and made unique by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, there are 8 doors of paradise. And one of those doors of paradise is the door of Hussein. Imam Hussein has been made unique. Imam Hussein has been singled out. He is one of the means of deliverance, one of the means of guidance, one of the means of us understanding Islam and recognizing it. The only means of guidance and salvation then is Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, that we can understand the true message of Islam, the true intent of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is contained in the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. You know, when Ahl Bayt alayhim salam were in that kharabe, that broken down old house that they were put in as a punishment in Sham, once Hazrat Zainab was sitting in there, and those children of Sham, it was coming on to the time of Ghurub, and those children of Sham were traveling in the streets, going home. There, we see that sitting in the lap of Zainab, a little girl asks her auntie, "Auntie, where are these children going? Where are these children going to?" Hazrat Zainab replies, "These children are going home, my love." And so she asks, "Auntie, don't we have a home that we can go home to? Don't we have a place that we can go home to?" Zainab replies, "Of course we do, but our home is in Medina." That night, this little girl, she goes to sleep. She begins to dream of her father, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. In her dream, her father says to her, "Come to me, my little one." She wakes up looking around for her father, crying out, "Hussein, Hussein, Abba, Father, Father, where are you?" And there's no relief for her. The guards get upset. They start to tell the family, "Keep this little girl quiet. Shut her up." They says, "We can't do anything. She woke up from a dream. She misses her father." They go to Yazid. Even Yazid wakes up. They go to Yazid. They say, "Yazid, the daughter of Hussein is crying for him. What should we do?" And he says, "Then give her her father." You know, last night I had told you this, and I want you to keep this in mind. They kept the head of Hussein dirty, bloody, muddy. All other heads were washed. All other heads were purified, except the head of Hussein. The head of Hussein, they kept it dirty and bloody, so that they could show to the people who is the leader of this revolt. They go and they take the head of Hussein, and from the hall, they throw the head of Hussein into the cell. The head rolls right into the lap of his beloved daughter. When she sees the head of her father, she begins to complain and kiss the neck of her father. "Father, who has cut your throat? Father, who has dealt with you like this?" She lets out a shriek, and she dies there in that kharabe. Can you imagine now the position of Imam Zainul Abidin? That there now, him and Zainab begin to dig a grave, but there's no tools. There's no shovel. There's no sword, there's no knife, and so they dig a grave with their bare hands. The hands of Imam Zainul Abidin are made bloody by digging in the soil. And they dig a very shallow grave and they rest this little girl in that grave. But there's one thing I want you to understand before we complete it for this evening. When they burnt the tents, when they set fire to the camp of Hussein, this little girl also was injured by the fire. Her clothes had been melted to her body. They couldn't even take the pieces of cloth from her flesh. It had been melted into her body. She still smelled of smoke. Can you believe it? A little girl burnt in this way, still smelling of smoke, and they buried her there in that grave. Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, they have to return to Medina, and when they get to the outskirts of Medina and the people of Medina find out that Ahl Bayt alayhim salam have returned, then they realize how many members of the family have been killed. And they are surprised even that it's not just adults that have been killed, it's not just adults that have been tortured, but the children even have suffered for the message of truth. This is the sunnah of Hussein. And if you consider yourself a Shia of Hussein, then you should prepare yourself for hardships like this. The young and the old, the males and the females. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيُّ الْعَظِيمِ. مات الحسين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.